Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Today I am showing you how I designed this baby shark cake topper that you've seen in my previous video from start to finish. If you're interested, let's jump right in. So the very first thing that I like to do when I am coming up with an idea of how to design something is I always go to Pinterest because I feel like that has endless possibilities to create something. So I created this party themes board. So I'm just gonna go here to neutral. So after I saw this, I pretty much got a good idea of what I wanted to create. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna pull up our Cricut design space. So I already have the one that I previously made on here, but I'm just gonna go through the steps of how I created that. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull up my text. I'm going to enter the number 4 because I want the 4 to be the main attraction of this cake topper. And one thing that I do spend a lot of time on is just going through all the fonts that are on here, just because I feel like the font is what really makes your, anything that you're working with. So this one right here, when I actually chose it, I really liked it, but I realized that there's actually 2 layers on here. So what I did is I thought this was, a little bit too thin for what I wanted. So what I did is I just unlocked it. And you can play around with the size, and that way you can make it a little bit thicker without necessarily having to make it longer. So that looks pretty good right there. The next thing that I did is I actually just purchased SVG files for the baby sharks on Etsy. So I'm just gonna go on here and I am going to insert. Let's go ahead and lock it so that way we can just make it bigger. And obviously the sharks, what I really like about this in particular is that you can change the color of the sharks to anything that you would like. So we can actually go here and just change the color of the sharks if we wanted to. So this one I'll do pink. And the only thing about the sharks is that to make it easier on yourself, you can do just a print and cut. Otherwise, you will have to just glue on these different little details onto the shark itself. So that may be time consuming, but again, it's all just up to you. I didn't mind doing it. So we just place them around. It doesn't have to be exactly how I did it on the last one. You can honestly place them wherever. We're just gonna send this one to the front. The only thing that I did like is leaving this little guy at the very top just because he's small. So I feel like he would get lost down here if we put the seaweed behind him and all that, other detail. So what I did is I just go to my images. We type in seaweed, and this one here is one that I use to get the bubbles. So we can go on here. I actually like this one as well. I like the 2 tones. So we're just gonna go ahead and insert those images. So what we can do is we can just duplicate these. Just gonna send this to the back. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, and we're just gonna send this one to the back as well. You can move these around. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate this. And the nice thing about this little seaweed here is that you can actually just ungroup it, and then it gives you the bubbles by itself. So I'm gonna put this one here, but I am going to send it to the back. I'll just go there. And I'm actually going to make this bigger just because I want it to stand out at the back of our 4. Or obviously any number that you're doing. If I wanted to just use 2 of these, I would just go to my shape, take any shape, just select these 2 and just slice it so that way we can just get it out of the way and just use these 2. So there we go, and this one I'm just gonna put here, and we're going to send it all the way to the back. That way it's just poking out a little bit. I really like that the font that I use on my initial project, I like how it just fit well with the number on here. So I just went, and this would actually be the same font that goes with the number 4 here. It's just about going through so this is the one that I used. So what I did here is I just went up here to the letter space and I just moved them close enough to where I can weld it, and it's not going to look too horrible. Sometimes you have to ungroup because you see here that the T and the H are too close, but the S and the A aren't touching. So I just ungroup this. I'll move the S a little bit just because I don't want it to be hanging off. Move this here. Now that we have that, I'm just going to select it and I am going to weld. So that way when it cuts, we're just cutting this one entire name by itself. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the color of it. So what I did next to get that shadow effect is I just went ahead and I made a duplicate of it. So now we have the same thing. I am going to change this into a different color. Doesn't matter what color it is, I'm just using red. So that way you can see the font on the back, and obviously since we just made a duplicate of it, it's already welded. So I'm just going to move it out a little bit, and you can tell in the original design that the letters obviously don't match up exactly. And actually what I did is I just went through. You want to unlock the measurements so that way you can do it however you want. Just move it around. Obviously it's not going to be perfect. The only thing that I do want is to get these little edges on here. So you can just play around with it. It honestly is just whatever your preference is at this point here. And just how much of the shadow that you want to give it. So I feel like that will look good. So after we have the name complete, we're just going to place it right here. I'm going to move up this right here. And you're going to just want to make sure that it's all flowing nicely. Move this over here just so you guys can see better. So we have our name, it's centered with our number 4. So now what I'm going to do, so I'm actually just going to go back to this, and I think for the last one that I used, so I'm just going to go on here. I like this little seaweed. I want to use it. So we're just going to pull it off. Whoops. We're going to get rid of this. And obviously you see that we don't need the seahorse. So I'm just going to take any shape, highlight it, we're gonna slice it, and the slicing tool is just going to literally slice the image. So it's just an easy way to kind of crop something out. So this one, you're just gonna want to fill in the spaces in between here, because you're gonna want it behind the name, and I'm also going to want it behind the shark as is. And this one, I'm actually just gonna change the color to orange. We are just going to go ahead and pull out, let's pull out this one. See if it moves. Aha. Okay, so I'm gonna pull this one out, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make it bigger. And I'm just going to send this. So you see it's just adding more detail, and it's gonna hide behind the A and B. So that's gonna be the holding point for it. The only thing that you do want to make sure is, again, that your name at the bottom is actually welded, so that way it's all cut out in one piece. So when you go to make it, you'll see that these are the shark parts here. If you're not going to do the print and cut option, these are just different little parts of the shark. This is how big our actual shark is going to be, because you actually just resize it down. This is the name. This part right here belongs to this little guy. What I did instead, because this is not going to cut properly, and since I'm not doing the print and cut option, what I did is I actually just didn't cut that, and I just drew in the little lines on there. So this is just, again, part of that fish. These little things, I believe this is just like the shark nostril. I left mine off. Again, it's something that you can just draw in if you really want it on there. So I'll show you. Oops. So see, this is, I'll make this larger for you guys. This is the part of the fish that was being cut. Obviously we're cutting him out smaller, so it is gonna mess up the cut. It doesn't make a huge difference to me. So as you see here, this is the one that we just created together. This one on the right is the one that I used in my previous video on how I put together the 3D cake topper. What I would do after I cut it out is I would just use the same next steps. I use all foam tape. So if you enjoyed today's video, just go ahead and give this a thumbs up. If you want to see how I put together any other theme, let me know in the comments down below, and we'll see you next time.